You could launch
Welcome back to our press preview with Ben Broden from the Daily Mail and Lembit Opik, the Liberal Democrat MP.
Yes, you're on, gents.
They were talking amongst yourselves. We're on there. Let's have a look at the Times. Teenager fights police on DNA record. Lembit, can you explain this story?
Yes, the government's basically facing a challenge over what turns out to be a practice of, and I quote here, keeping the DNA profile and fingerprints of anyone who has been arrested for a recordable offence, whether they are charged, prosecuted or convicted. Which basically means that if, and also by the way, until that person dies or reaches the age of 100, and that basically means that if you're arrested for an offence, regardless of whether you're found guilty or taken to court or anything else, the police will keep those details on file. And the concern is, teenagers feel that's wrong, and that this exposes them to, if you like, an injustice.
Why?
Well, for example, I can tell you an example from my own experience. A friend's brother was arrested and questioned for a potential rape, which he couldn't possibly have been involved in. It was at the other end of the country, because the DNA seemed similar. And what they're saying here is that it's not right to, under the European Court of Human Rights, to keep that kind of very personal, intimate information about people who are innocent.
There's actually, this is quite a significant story, and I think we owe a vote of thanks to this unnamed teenager who's known as S, who is taking this case to the court. You just have to look at some of the statistics. The government plans that by 2008, which is not that far away, according to this, nearly 5 million cases, DNA profiles, will be held. That's the equivalent of 1 in 12 of the entire UK population will be held on file by police indefinitely.
What's the purpose of holding them on file if the person...
Well, their argument is that they then have a database of people, and if in future that person is involved in some kind of crime and they take a DNA, they can match them and...
well, the argument exists, but it could be used to act, in the case against you. It could also be used to clear you.
Exactly, but the counter to that, the thing that's worrying everybody, is that you recall some months ago there was it emerged that there were 24,000 individuals, boys and girls, so teenagers, whose information was being held when it shouldn't be, who were completely innocent. And I think what people are worried about is that there is this giant record being created where individuals who are involved don't have much of a say as to whether or not they should be on it or not. And I think this is the point that Lembit was touching on earlier in the programme, which is that he's worried about the police state. I think this is where you've really got a case for what you're arguing.
Yeah.
I was going to say, that is this any different, though, in real terms from the ID card issue? Because that's all biometric data that will be stored on government files.
It's all connected, and some of us think that there's some motivation going on here. Because, of course, if you gave somebody the instruction of eliminating crime in this country, then why don't they just tag all of us so that they know where we are when any crime is committed? The question here is, how much freedom are we allowed to have? Is liberty and privacy a value in itself? People like me, and I suspect Ben, think it is. And what we're seeing here is the invasion of that liberty at the most personal scale. And also, let's remember, this system is not infallible. People make mistakes, police can make mistakes. You can find yourself tried or dredged up from a system where you were never meant to be in the first place. Liberty is becoming a very important matter here, and the organisation of liberty feels that this is very wrong.
That's a key point that you make there, that mistakes can be made with DNA profiling, because I think now there is the perception that it's a complete, perfect science.
And it isn't. No, of course not. I'm sure that, like most sciences, there are huge degrees of it being fallible. And I think the other thing that people need to keep in mind is that the records that are being held are for people who are charged. They don't necessarily have to have been convicted. So you have cases of people who are hauled up before the police and it turns out they're absolutely cleared, but the evidence that it was taken on them remains on the database. And I think that's what people are feeling slightly uneasy with.
And the principle of keeping those innocent people on the database and keeping us all on the database is no difference. So that's the concern. Would you want the details in this machine?
This story is also a harbinger of what, there's some very, as you rightly said, there are some very heavy debates coming up on the whole ID cards bill and legislation. That's going to be a long-running debate, and I think what you're seeing across newspapers, regardless of their political colour, is that they are all, in one way or another, feeling very uneasy about this because it touches on issues of privacy, which we're already very concerned about.
I suppose the counter-argument would be, if you're a law-abiding citizen, then you have nothing to fear.
You've never broken the law, never committed a speeding offence or parked in the wrong place. The problem is, we're all